Hey everyone! Last time I spoke about what I believed were the 5 best fit skills that you can use in Ring Fit Adventure as far as their functionality and use as exercises go, and with 5 out of 43 being at the top of the list, it only makes sense if I say what I believe the worst 5 fit skills are. So again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible here, not taking into account my own likes and dislikes. What I am using to judge the moves is how it works your body, the muscles worked, what function the move holds for your workout, amount of prior skill and conditioning needed to perform, and how the form is implemented in-game. I also want to add clarification about the skill and conditioning judgments. My reasoning for this is because Ring Fit Adventure is a fantastic way to get into fitness, and as such, the target audience is beginner to intermediate. There are a heap of people who don't really have a fitness routine, and for whom Ring Fit is creating the habit. Whilst having moves with different skill floors and necessary conditioning to do is a good idea for progression purposes, I don't feel like Ring Fit Adventure does a very good job of pointing out these harder skills. If you go into a move that needs a higher skill floor without the prior conditioning, your risk of injury jumps up, and obviously that's not what anyone wants. So while that exercise I'm talking about might not be bad per se for its purpose, this is more to do with the way that Ring Fit has implemented them that makes it, in my opinion, a bad move, and not one that I as a fitness professional would recommend to perform unless conditioned well. So now that is out of the way, here we go. These are, in my opinion as a fitness professional, the 5 worst moves in Ring Fit Adventure, and as per my last video, we are going to leave the worst for last. At number 5, the overhead arm twist. So as far as I'm concerned, the overhead arm twist is a bit of a dud move, and the reason I say this is because the effect of its training is rather minimal and niche. It uses rotation of the wrists to train, whilst working the shoulders isometrically to keep the ring con up against gravity. You rotate the forearms back and forth in quick motion. Now, if we're looking to train the shoulders isometrically, there are plenty of moves that do this more effectively, such as overhead press or overhead squat. The rotational component is also trained with more control in Warrior 2 pose, but the difference in speed and angle puts a little bit more emphasis on the wrists in this exercise. The issue is, with such minimal resistance, the effect of this training isn't really worth the time investment in most cases. If you want to train the forearms in general, including the wrists, the front press will recruit the muscle fibers more effectively, and theoretically they could have implemented a wrist curl move to actually hit the brachioradialis in a more isolated way, so this move does feel kind of like a phone-in. It makes a good break in the middle of a set, and it's safe and easy to perform in most cases, but its lack of a good function drags it down. At number 4, the mountain climber. Yeah, I bet you saw this coming. This move is notoriously difficult to get great reps on in Ring Fit Adventure, and I feel that the implementation of this move is one of the things that causes such an issue. Your leg positioning and position of the thigh strap seem to affect this move very significantly, and if you do them as instructed by many trainers, which is an elevated plank position and then bringing the knee straight up to the chest in a controlled manner, you more often than not struggle to hit the moves well in Ring Fit. As a functional exercise, it's pretty great, to be honest. It's got a cardiovascular element, stability through the core, shoulders and hips, and that crunch movement to work your abs further. Mountain climbers as an exercise aren't bad, but for Ring Fit to register them properly, you must jump your leg up to the chest with your knees out, away from the body rather than straight in, and then there's a slight pause before you have to thrust the leg down and jump the other one up. This can easily create a curve at the back or a drop in the hips to get the action to register, therefore compromising correct form for the move to correctly register in-game. That is what makes me say it is implemented poorly in Ring Fit Adventure, and it increases the skill and conditioning needed to perform well due to that increased level of movement. I believe it does have its benefits and uses, but I also feel the way that Ring Fit Adventure makes you execute the move makes it worse for you, so that's why it is here on the list. At number 3, boat pose. So this one took a fair bit of deliberation on my end as to whether it should be in the list, as boat pose certainly does have its place in the workouts of a well-conditioned Ring Fit player. So the reason I have this in the worst 5 isn't because of its lack of function nor the good it can do for you. It is purely the implementation in the game and the fact that as far as mechanics of the exercise go, it is far and away the most difficult move to perform with correct form, so please bear with me here. To perform the boat pose, you must have a good level of core strength and decent hip mobility to hold the initial pose properly. Overly tight hip flexors will really show here, which is problematic and can cause pain when being held, similar to feet to chest. Now, from the seated position, we unfold our body back to a supine position whilst keeping our upper back and feet off the floor. So it's sort of like a V-sit position with arms extended over our heads, The descent has to be controlled very well to ensure we don't drop the feet or shoulders, which requires a high level of core strength and ability. Then we need to reverse the movement slowly to get back to the start, requiring more significant use of the posterior chain. This entire movement pattern requires skill and core control to a point above your average Ring Fit target user in order to perform the move correctly for repeated reps. There's no warning in-game about how mechanically difficult this move is, and it being sprung upon people could lead to the move being performed poorly or with rushed form, especially as in adventure mode. It's a good powered move that hits 5 spots at a time. I feel this leads to an increased chance of injury with boat pose. You risk abdominal muscle strain near the bottom of the rep, and a fair amount of pressure is placed on the lower back, especially on the return to the top of the rep. Weak posterior chains are fairly common, and thus this can negatively impact the form of your exercise. These strains could stop you from working out for quite a while. As I've said before, this is my opinion as a fitness professional. I feel it's got its place if you're trained well and conditioned, as it is an effective move, and also why I could never say that it's the worst move in the game. Of course not, because it's not. But if you're fresh into exercise, as a high amount of the target audience may be, I would never recommend it due to its advanced nature. I personally feel that a regression of the exercise where holding the initial pose and then dropping your feet could have sufficed. Instead, they've implemented a very tough move that runs a higher injury risk if performed poorly more than any other move in the game. And if you are conditioned well, then go for it, once you've got some good core stability through training other moves like leg raise or overhead bend, then sure, bring boat pose into your training, but avoid it if you are new to exercise. Poor form here runs serious risks and problems. The sheer difficulty in comparison to every other fit skill causes me to put it here in this list. At number 2, the overhead arm spin. So in similar fashion to the overhead arm twist, I feel this move is not worth the time investment to train. The overhead arm spin is a move that works your shoulders in with some controlled rotational movement in the frontal plane that requires your chest and some core stability. In itself, there are a couple of functions this can bring to a workout like stability training, so why is this so high up on the list? As far as I can deduce, there isn't anything this move can do for you that isn't provided in a better way by other fit skills. Overhead press and overhead lunge twist can recruit the shoulders better, the core is worked more efficiently by a lot of the other core movements. Seated ring raise comes to mind as I'm saying this. It doesn't require a high skill floor to use, so injury possibility is pretty low. It's simple and it does have some use in adventure move as a multi-hitter move, so there are some pros, but overall, overhead arm spin just isn't as good at doing what it aims to do as other exercises available in Ring Fit Adventure, so it isn't something I'd recommend spending time with. Even in adventure mode, I'd go front press or overhead arm twist for a better attacking move. And so, in my opinion, the number 1 on this list is the plank. Planks in the real world are tough, but they do have a good function, which is core stability through the midline, as well as helping train erector spinae in a safe manner to help it protect your spine from rotational forces and such. In order to do a plank correctly, you have to hold your body in a straight line, no sagging or moving at the hips, keeping your shoulders stable, just one straight line. Ring Fit Adventure asks you to do a plank, but then the charging part of the move is actually a hip lift to a downward dog style position. The intention of the plank is to create muscular endurance through pure static stability, and the plank in Ring Fit Adventure doesn't achieve that due to the charge phase, which does detract from the intention of the plank. It achieves a more dynamic hip-based core exercise, which isn't so bad to have as it trains your hip flexors and the anterior chain, but these are trained more efficiently in moves like hip lift, overhead bend, leg raise and wide squat. The skill floor is one of the highest ones in the game owing to the tough nature of planks, and it seems to me that the hip lift was implemented in order to make it easier as it takes some of the tension away from the lower part of the core. That does make sense theoretically, but it doesn't particularly make the time under tension any easier due to the increased pressure on the shoulders and that hip movement. Now, the move's detection is based on the leg position as well, and it often doesn't register the full movement properly, which means further raising or arching your back to register. This increased movement in the lower back, combined with fatigue or poor posture, could lead to an increased injury chance as far as I can see. The implementation here is not good. Whilst it can be used with good conditioning, as with many of the other tougher exercises, I feel there is a way to train the target muscles better using other fit skills available. So summing up, this fit skill doesn't perform the exercise's main function, it's not the optimal way in-game to train the muscles used, its implementation is poor, and it has got one of the higher skill levels needed to perform correctly in a game where the target audience may not have as good conditioning. Now, all of this combines to make it, in my opinion, the worst fit skill in Ring Fit Adventure. So that sums up what are, in my professional opinion, the worst 5 fit skills in Ring Fit. As I've said, I've tried to be as objective as possible here, taking into account a variety of factors, and that being said, depending on your own goals and fitness, most of these exercises could have a place in your fit skill list, especially boat pose. It really is the difficulty with that one that causes me problem here, and just because something is available to do, it doesn't mean that you should do it. I guess that's the point I'm trying to iterate there. Other moves could also work, especially in a rehab situation, but that's a very niche scenario, and I feel that in that case, a physician or physiotherapist would recommend a better, more specific exercise in comparison to what Ring Fit can offer. I also want to quickly add that I don't want to make anyone feel bad or wrong here. If you enjoy or prefer one of these moves, then that's fantastic. I really enjoy performing some of these moves too, but this is about how I see the exercises objectively as a PT and what I'd recommend or get people to perform or not. So look, do you agree? Are there particular points you disagree on? What's the worst move in your opinion? Please let me know in the comments, and if you've enjoyed watching this, a like on the video would really mean a lot to me. Please check out some of my other Ring Fit content and subscribe for more fun and in-depth discussions and videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.